Once we were down the bluff and walking, Greltha began up a conversation that I wasn't intrinsically ready for.
Miss Val, is Keith your mate?
Wow, that was fast.
No, we're not.
But you are attracted to him?
She replied, though it was more a statement than a question, really. I took a breath.
Yeah, I am. But I mean, aside from all the we could die at any moment stuff, there are, other concerns.
Greltha cocked her head slightly.
My people would say that the immediacy of our potential deaths is a reason to tell him. But what are the other concerns?
Sighing, I silently decided fuck it, and I went over most of what I'd already told Keith, and at the end,
I got abandoned by the last man I trusted, and I know I have trust issues.
Greltha considered a moment.
I have not known him that long, but I would say that Keith is not the sort to abandon anyone. My proof of that is his injuries, our presence in your tribe, and our mission to find others to bring into his tribe.
I shook my head.
Greltha, I get that. By all logic and reason, Keith would never leave me. He wouldn't leave anyone. But emotionally, I'm scared. There's this song on Earth, Because of You, and I think there's kind of a point in one of the lyrics. Because of you, I don't know how to let anyone else in. Before all of this, yeah, I'd have gotten together with him, without blinking. Even when I consider my daughter, I can't imagine him as anything other than a great dad. But I still can't even trust my own feelings, my own logic, and I know it's stupid and weak, but it's still there. And even aside from my own stuff, Keith has just a pile of trauma, and that makes the feelings worse.
Greltha signaled a break as we walked and sipped at her water.
What sort of trauma?
Keith has lost his parents, his grandparents, friends he served with, and then lost his wife and daughter. And it's selfish, I grant that. But I mean, any one trauma in his life is worse than everything I've ever been through. And I had people. I had support. He's repeatedly been left alone his whole life, and it's there. He panicked awake the morning of the attack, had a full-blown panic attack, and it took time to get him back under control. Not that he was violent. He was just screaming for me like he thought I'd died. I think it was him talking about it. I did a basic psychology course in college, and we did study PTSD for a bit. It's a concept called moral injury. Something happens that's so horrific that it maims who you are as a person. Then, when they broadcast the cougar fight, he yelled about how the universe didn't get to take one more thing from him, and if I'm honest, I don't know if he was even aware of you in that moment. I don't even get how he's still standing as a person, let alone trying to take care of everyone here. Any one of his traumas is worse than everything that's ever happened to me in my entire life, and I don't know how can be as sane as he is.
When I looked up, the fur under Greltha's eyes was wet with tears.
Nor can I. For the Rathani, family is all. Many of our kind would have died from the grief of so much being torn away from them, and yet he stands. I didn't understand what he was screaming at the cougar at the time, but it makes sense, given the context you've given to it. We should keep moving, however.
We got up, and for a time, neither of us felt much like talking. We passed back through a very quiet forest. The various prey animals were likely avoiding the area, given the leftover sense of blood as we got closer to where the fight had happened. Greltha waved off, taking a break. She didn't want to dwell back there, and I fully understood the feeling as I shared it. I had nearly watched as Keith died, and I can only imagine that feeling magnified in the two Rathani that had been hunted by that thing. While we did keep moving, I did look around. The last time I had come along these paths, I'd been running for the bluff, and I hadn't really had time to properly explore. And without the little booklets, that search wouldn't have meant much. Certainly I'd looked from the treetop, but that was more in the vein of locating somewhere to make camp. Now I looked around at the lavender grass, the trees, vines, moss, and budding flowers. The walk wasn't unpleasant, and were we not fighting for our lives and the freedom of our species, it would have been quite a fun day excursion. While it was cool out, the survival gear we'd been given was enough to keep the chill off of us. The sun was getting higher in the sky, and I estimated it would be around this planet's equivalent of 10 a.m. as Greltha called a halt, sniffing the air.
I can smell others.
Turning about, I looked for landmarks, the ones Keith had tricked out of Annabelle, and I could just see them to the north. Following Greltha's lead, we tracked through some brush until I started noticing little disturbances, a small broken branch here, or some odd footprints there. Greltha seemed to know where she was going, so I made it my job to mark the trees as we passed, creating a way for us to find our way back easily, each mark at shoulder height so I could feel them, even if I couldn't see them. As we came upon a small cul-de-sac naturally formed between small hills, fallen logs, and the like.
They are here, the Vergal. I can smell large lizard creatures.
I nodded and took the red banner off my backpack, having Greltha hold it up while I called out,
My name is Val. We mean you no harm. We have food with us if you're hungry, and water if you're thirsty.
The first peeked its head out. Its head was almost completely smooth, save for the rounded bits of bone that would become a trail of stegosaur plates going down its back, almost to the tail. It seemed scared at first, until it saw the banner, then it disappeared back inside the cul-de-sac. It had made no motion for us to follow, so I simply called out my message again and again. Greltha assured me that they were still in there. The cul-de-sac was defensible, but it also meant that there was no other quick exit to it. After several minutes of calling, two came out, and while I'm certainly not a xenobiologist, it was pretty clear that these two were in no shape to fight us. They were thin, too thin, and I could just see ribs as they exhaled. They had likely not eaten in some time, and remembering them from the beach, they hadn't looked particularly well fed then. They were still nervous and staying quiet, so as I repeated my message again, softer this time, I made a show of setting down my hatchet and knife, while Greltha made an offering gesture with the banner, making certain that it did not touch the ground. Finally one spoke.
What is it you want? We have no trade.
Keith's trick had worked. I removed my backpack and got out 2 fish.
We're not here to trade. We want you to come with us. You both look hungry. Is this food for you?
They both made a clicking noise, and their tongues automatically peeked out. The smaller one tried to move forward, but was halted where they stood by the larger one.
Why would you help us? This hurts you. It hurts your species.
I sighed. This would take a while, and I hit privacy mode for a moment.
I wouldn't, but Keith, who leads us, has a strategy to beat the game, not just for us, but for everyone. I don't know if you heard about this from your council, but Keith killed the giant cat and swore to every species watching that he would protect everyone, and then threatened Ravage Teak.
Maybe it was the wrong move, but holding back could hurt us with the other species, who already distrusted us, so speaking truthfully seemed the best bet. I shut off privacy mode, and as I awaited a response, I laid down the 2 fish on a stone, eating a small piece along with a bottle containing cougar bone broth that I took a sip from, and signaled Greltha to move back with me, stepping away, and even leaving my weapons in their reach. Every step back was nerve-wracking. How does Keith keep doing this shit? Either one of them could knock out half of the lead team in one swift move, and we were handing it to them. When we were 10 paces back, the smaller one shot forward, ignoring hatchet and knife to start eating the fish and gulping down the broth.
It's amazing. How do humans make this?
Before I could answer, the taller one rushed over and lightly slapped the smaller one.
Chathuxel, it could be poisoned.
What hadn't translated must have been the small one's name.
Chithuxil. Did I say that right? I'm Val, and I promise you both, we really mean no harm. I tried both, so I'd be just as poisoned. Keith, my partner, is a medic, a healer, and he has an oath to render aid, one he can't convince himself to deny, even in this death game.
This seemed to move the bigger one, who was now considering Greltha, and paying special attention to the bandaging on her arm.
Keith, he did that for you?
Greltha held up the bandaged arm.
I am Greltha, of the Rathani. Yes, as soon as we were back to his camp. He gravely injured himself in the fight to save us, but he fed me, and my mate, checked us for wounds, and helped us to make shelter. He threatened Ravage Teak, and swore to all our homes to protect us all, and ask our species for elements to prove that his intentions were peaceful. This banner was sent by your people.
The taller made its first move toward us, cautiously, but putting themselves between Chatuxel and us.
I am a Zoku, and that banner is the banner of my clan.
I considered for a moment, and there was something between the two Vergal.
Is Chathuxil your child?
Azoku straightened to full height.
He is my son, yes?
I took a small step forward.
I am a mother myself, and I swear on my daughter, we are not your enemy. The Kathrall are. They brought us here, they pitted us against each other, and they are the ones threatening to enslave our peoples.
Hey everyone, hope you loved the video. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit subscribe for more awesome sci-fi content. You can also support us by hitting the thanks button or becoming a channel member. Your generosity helps us bring you more stellar stories. Every bit counts. Thanks a bunch.